my pleasure to introduce the speaker today, Mr. Fadi Ghandour. Fadi Ghandour needs little introduction, if any, if you know anything about business in the Middle East. The founder of global logistics and transportation company Airmax is arguably the region's best-known entrepreneur, a mentor and role model for many young Arabs, an angel investor, and one who is more than happy to challenge traditional business and social values. We'll be hearing from him today about many of these issues. He established Airmax in 1982, and it became the first Arab-based company to trade its shares on NASDAQ in 1997. Returned to private ownership in 2002, and then went public 3 years later on the Dubai financial market as Arab International Logistics. Fadi is actively involved with community and NGO work and is passionate about social entrepreneurship, activism, and social change. He strongly believes in corporate sustainability as the way of the future and led Airmax to release the first sustainability report in the Arab world. He's committed to creating awareness about sustainable business practices in the region and engaging the private sector to play a leading role in the development of their communities. He's has many accomplishments and contributions to the region. I'll name only a few. He's a founding partner of Maktub.com, which hopefully he'll talk about today. Abraj Capital, member of the board. Endeavor Jordan, he's on an advisory board member of the Sulaiman Al-Ayyan School of Business, American University of Beirut, a founder of Ruwad, which is a regional private sector-led community empowerment initiative that helps disadvantaged communities overcome marginalization through activism, civic engagement, and education. So he's not only stayed in the business world, he's made an impact on many different levels. We're very excited to have Mr. Ghandour with us today. It's my honor to introduce him. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Ghandour.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hilary, for the detailed introduction. Actually, it helps me because I am going to basically be talking about the story of my life by addressing the issues that I have faced over the years and what the region is about today, and talk about a positive story. But before I do that, can I? Who's doing business here, studying business? So most of you are in School of Government. Okay, so all from the Middle East, most? No? So you know the region, and you want to go back. So I'm here I'm on a sales pitch here to make sure that you all come back home and do what I think is something, engage in an exciting story back home. So when people talk about the Middle East, as you know, when people read about the Middle East, we are only reading stories about wars, invasions, terrorism, failed peace processes, or peace processes that continue forever as a process and has no end. So you don't need to hear about that, obviously. That's not an interesting story, that's a scary story, that's a boring story, and that is not the whole story. So the Arab world and the Middle East is not about wars alone. It is about many other things that are happening that we need to, most of you that have lived there know that there is another story, because not all of us are engaged in terror, not all of us are engaged in armies, not all of us are engaged in peace. Some of us are engaged in actually building, in actually being positive, and actually going out and making a difference within the communities that we live in, whether through businesses, whether through entrepreneurship, whether through social entrepreneurship, whether through any sort of citizen activism to make a difference on the ground, because we care about the communities that we live in. So I am going to address two issues here. The issue, and I'm going to get away from the state. So I'm not going to be complaining governments are not doing this and governments are not doing that, because that's also a boring story. Because governments, wherever they are, and specifically here in the US now, you always talk about what government is not doing, or where it's doing more than it needs to do. It's smothering its private sector and actually taking over. We're not going to talk about that. I'm gonna, not that governments are not influencing things around that, but because it's there. I mean, why, we know it. But I want to talk about a glimpse of hope, maybe, I think, in the region. I'm going to tell a really positive story here about what I call are the non-state actors, people like you and me, that are actually changing the region slowly. There are trends, there are signs of people across the region that are going out and ignoring all the obstacles and deciding that they can actually make a difference with the business, change a social issue, address a challenge in the communities that they live in. And there's plenty of them across the region. So, but again, to do that, I will touch just a little bit on what we call the challenges that the region is facing today, just so that I set the scene from an opportunity perspective, not from a problem perspective. So everything that I'm talking about is something that needs a solution. And thus entrepreneurs are always in the business of finding solutions. So we all know about the education deficit. So the Arab world has a challenge of creating 100 million jobs, we are told, while within the next 10 years, the Arab world is 65% under the age of 25 years old. They call it the youth bunch. I call it the youth opportunity, because bunch is such an obnoxious word. So, it's not a bunch, they're human beings, and they're going to go out there, and they're going to have to be productive. They're going to have to live a life and have opportunities just like all of us do. So what do we do with this huge amount of human talent that is going to go out and build the region, or rebuild it, or remake it? There's the issue of governance and democracy, obviously, and transparency, delivering services, and failures of various government services. We can talk at length about it, but it's there, to varying degrees. Not the Middle East, as you know, is many countries. I'm not going to generalize. I can't generalize. To varying degrees, each country has its own issues, but in general, they all touch one way or another on the same issues. Women empowerment is another issue in the region. 50% or more than 50% of our college graduates are women, but 15 to 20% of our workforce is women. So there's a mismatch somewhere. Something is not clicking here. Research and development, and that scientific story is also known to all of us. The Arab Human Development Report has documented it many times over how many patents have been registered in the Arab world versus other countries, and everybody talks about it. But okay, so it's there. There's a deficit. The quality of the labor force, so the mismatch between what the market requires and what the education system produces is a big story in the region. So that's partly the endemic 15%. The Arab world has a 15% structural unemployment. So even as we create 100 million jobs in the next 10 years, that's based on the continuous 15%, as if it is built in, as if the 15% unemployment is going to stay there forever. And then there is also two things that are tied in together: the curse of oil. So the beauty of it, it's a paradox. So one, it's a huge resource. Another one, it has created the welfare state. It has created the state that basically has created a safety net, specifically in the Gulf countries, where there's no urge to work outside of government. It is the provider of everything, and thus seeking jobs in the private sector, or easier, bring in the foreign expatriates to come and work, and we will sit and not work, or work in government in menial jobs that are not as productive. That's changing a little bit, but that's also a big challenge. So what do we do with our resources? How do we channel? The Middle East is still is the largest producer of extra liquidity in terms of cash after China in the West. So what happens with that? Trillions of dollars, because at the price of oil is at $70 a barrel today. That is about $30 more than any budget in the region. All budgets in the Gulf are built around $40, $45 a barrel to have a balanced budget. So there is an extra liquidity of $25. What happens to that? Where is it channeled? What are we doing with it? Some of it is productive. Huge opportunity, yet also could be a big challenge. So, in general, that's what's happening. I also want to say another story, that as we talk about unemployment, we also need to remember that the biggest employer, as it is here, as it is in the West, of people in the region are small and medium-sized enterprises. By nature. I'll give you an example. So in the US, we are told it's 51%. In the UK, it's 30%. In Saudi Arabia, 51%. That's a contribution to GDP. SMEs are 51% of GDP in the US, 30% in the UK, 28% in Saudi Arabia, 30% in the UAE, 25% in Egypt, 32% in Turkey, and 30% in Pakistan. But as we talk about employment, so the UAE is 86% of the UAE population is actually working. Population meaning expatriates and locals when we talk about Gulf countries. In Egypt, 75% of employment happens in that small and medium-sized industry. In Turkey, it's 77%. In Pakistan, it's 80%. In general, on average, it's about 73%. 73% of the regional Middle East employment happens in small and medium-sized industries. So, having said that, that means by definition that, and I'm going, by the way, wake up. So I'm going to speak for just give you some headlines, and then I'd like to engage you, please, because a lot of you know about the region, and I might be saying some controversial things, I might be saying some things that you disagree with. If you disagree with some of the things, stop me so that we can argue a little bit about it, and maybe I can convince you. I must convince you. So having said all of that, I also am feeling that there is, we are living it, and Habib Haddad, my good friend here, who is a great entrepreneur from the region, I'll also talk about you in a little bit. We went up in the elevator together. I said, I'm so happy you're here because every time somebody argues with me, I say, look, there's Habib here. He is the example of what I'm talking about. So the state and its issues, there is also you and I, the private sector, involved and concerned citizens, bloggers, social entrepreneurs. They're all over the place. They are popping out everywhere. They realize the issues and they think they want to do something about it. They don't care about obstacles anymore. They do not care about bureaucratic issues. They say, we're concerned, we're worried, and we can do something about it, whether the state is going to be part of it or not. So they're going out and actually changing things on the ground with their feet. There's plenty of examples across the region, specifically in the Levant, Egypt, and North Africa. This is a trend of positive thinking, of people that are saying that the well-being of our neighborhood, the well-being of our state, the affluence of our people is our concern also. Because historically, we grew up blaming the state. We grew up depending on the state for doing everything for us. That trend is changing. And there was a big story last year on the business side of Maktub, as you might have heard. Maktub was the largest portal in the Arab world. The Yahoo of the Arab world gets acquired by Yahoo for $165 million. The first deal of its kind ever in the region, in the online business. It confirms that 300 people, non-asset-based company, doesn't own anything except its web presence, can actually go out and build value. Changes the whole concept about the region, because historically we were told, since the internet came out, the Arab world cannot have an internet business. That is, who wants to invest in that? And the Arab world was investing in buildings. We've seen Dubai, we've seen Abu Dhabi, we've seen everything. The whole, when you want to look at the Arab world, they never show you a face of a human being. They show you a tall building. So that we recognize, here's Burj Al Arab, here is the tallest, the youngest, the widest. So it's stuff that is easy to do anywhere. You can build the tallest building anywhere. Anybody that has money can do that. So they never tell you, here's an entrepreneur who made it, or here is the Bill Gates, or the Stephen Jobs, or the Habib Haddad, or the many others, or the Samih Touqan, the founder of Maktub. So, but then Maktub suddenly pops up in the middle of the bus, gets acquired by this major company out of the US. So it makes a statement. It makes a statement to young entrepreneurs in the region who are already underground building their businesses. Underground meaning they didn't know that they had value. They were, these were geeks. These were people who, just like anywhere, sit behind their desk, their computer, and do stuff. And, find solutions, look at what is happening in other places, try to localize it here, Arabize it here, or bring it into the Turkish language, or Farsi, etc., etc. These are, anybody could do that. Suddenly they hear about Samih and Hussam, and say, okay, so there's value here. There's value, there is, I can do it. I can actually be like those people. These are my role models. They have made it. Big story. The ripple effects in the technology and entrepreneurship world of the Arab world, and Habib can attest to that, was just like a massive volcano. And then suddenly, venture capital started realizing, Yahoo is spending this much money. Google was thinking. Yahoo is looking at the Arab world. Many other Silicon Valley companies were saying, what's happening here? This is a region that we thought was not happening. Then, yes, it's happening. There is something to be looked at. The traditional financial, the traditional industry in the Arab world was private equity industry, meaning privatizations, meaning established companies that get these are historical family businesses that either sell part of their business to the private equity and then they spun off to another private equity, etc. It's all it generates wealth for the owners, but these are not job generators necessarily, because when you flip, my private equity friends will argue with me and will hate me, but no, private equity in general in the Arab world, part of it generated jobs, but it was not a job generator. It was flipping an owner to another owner and adding some value, growing the profitability, but not necessarily solving the problem of 100 million people in 10 years. No. Because the private equity is not about small and medium-sized industries. It is about established, big, huge, multi-million-dollar businesses. So the SMEs, which are creating the jobs, were not getting the attention until, they were getting the attention of some angel investors, but until the Maktub story came out, it changed the outlook of the region. And I'm talking even politically, because political leaders started saying, wow, look at that. I mean, and if it's done in Jordan, then I want to make sure that Egypt is able to do it. I want to make sure that Lebanon is able to do it. What are the Jordanians doing that the Lebanese are not doing? Why don't we have broadband? In Lebanon, until today, we don't have broadband. I mean, unbelievable. And they want to, and they call themselves, and they say, we want to become the Silicon Valley of the Arab world. Don't they know that they need broadband, Habib, to become the Silicon Valley? I mean, but these questions are coming up now. Suddenly, people are saying, why not? So, incubators are popping up. The University of Damascus, believe it or not, has an incubator. think Damascus is only old, the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world, but it has an undercurrent of a massive amount of entrepreneurs. The Lebanese entrepreneurs who don't make it in Lebanon because of broadband and other political issues, which, by the way, come and affect talent in that region, are making it somewhere else in the region. Are either coming here or are making it in Dubai or are going to Saudi Arabia. They are going. Talent goes and produces and innovates and creates. So countries suddenly are realizing that there is something there. There is something there. And by definition, then private equity says, so we need to think small. We need to think about the $2 million deal rather than the $200 million deal. And people, for the longest period of time, said, there's no need for venture capital in the Arab world. Venture capital in the Arab world. You did the study, so you can always support what I'm saying. Because there are no deals. Where's the deal flow? For the past 10 years, I've been hearing, he's raising money to have venture capital, but there are no businesses. While 90% of registered companies in Jordan are small and medium-sized companies, for instance. They're not big companies. I can give you, on one hand, the number of big companies in Jordan, and the rest I don't even know who they are. So, suddenly, venture capital is popping. And when venture capital is popping up, meaning slowly the ecosystem is being built. So, Princess Sumaya University in Jordan, and I'm giving Jordan as an example because I know it well, but I am sure there are many examples across the region. Princess Sumaya University of Jordan teaches only technology. Graduates 400 people a year. Every single one of them gets 2 or 3 job offers on the spot, on graduation. Meaning what? Good education, you get a job. Lousy education, you're not going to get a job. Education in the proper industry where there's demand, you're going to get a job. And then the university, which is among the few universities in the region that has an incubator, because of the nature of the creature being in technology. So it has an incubator and it has many companies that are popping up on the entrepreneurial world today that people are starting to talk about. It's basically what you see in Silicon Valley. It's Stanford University with its ecosystem. It's the symbiosis between business, capital, and students, and research and development. It's been done before, and there's nothing new about it. All I'm telling you is that it is happening in the region. It is happening in a big way. It's happening in Egypt. It's happening in Jordan. Slowly in Lebanon, and it's affecting government. It is, in fact, instead of government influencing these people are basically changing the way, as slow as it can be, of how governments views its youth. So these people are saying, we don't want to only look for jobs, even though we don't mind jobs. But some of us are going to take the risk and become job creators rather than job seekers. That is what the story in the region, in my view, is going to be. So, huge trend, huge amount of money. There's Grash Capital, which is the largest private equity firm. I have to disclose that I'm involved with them. Largest private equity firm in the Arab world has launched $700 million to $1 billion venture capital, small and medium sized, some part of it early stage businesses. OPIC, which is a government arm here in the United States, is giving them $150 million so that they can match that in investing in small and medium sized businesses. You know how $1 billion is going to create an industry. And then there are many others that are suddenly popping up. There are Silicon Valley venture capital funds who are looking at the region. So you are going to see tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars being channeled into the region. A lot of it is in technology, but a lot of it is also investing in actually brick and mortar, with bricks and clicks. So that's one story that I want to mention. And there are Habib Haddad, again, I'm going to use you as an example, who used to, when I first met him, you know, Habib created a company called Yamli. Have you know Yamli? Have you heard of Yamli?
Yes.
So Yamli is, you type in English and it pops up in Arabic. People think I type in Arabic now. They don't know that I have the magic of Yamli. So Habib created Yamli. When I first met him, he told me, I told him, so why are you in Boston? Because Habib is based in Boston. I mean, it's expensive to develop, right? He said, because I couldn't find any angel investor to give me money in the Middle East. That was only 3 years ago. But now Habib Haddad, everybody is following Habib Haddad. Everybody wants to give him money one way or another. He's not ready for it, but we are all ready for you. But that's what's happening. So only 3 years ago, he could only find angel investors in around Route 123, right? Is that
Silicon Valley.
In Silicon Valley. So, and how changed has the region become? It's unbelievable. Since I am an angel investor myself and I post, I'm a microblogger, I do a lot of tweeting on Twitter. And I get practically every single day business plan. Every single day. And I'm not even asking for them. Sometimes I say, you know, if you're interested, contact me. And then I get floods of people telling me, I have a business here, I have a business there, I want to do this, or lots of mentorship required. Because these people are geeks. They don't know how to build a business. They don't know how to find a lawyer. They don't know how to recruit. They don't know how to make how to do their business. So they need a big brother. They need a big sister. They need somebody to hold their hand to tell them stories about it. And so again, we're seeing networks of angel investors that are becoming mentors. We're seeing mentorship networks that are coming up. Everything that you've seen in the ecosystem that is popping up here is suddenly, and a lot of the Arab Americans that have built their businesses here, specifically in the technology industry, is starting to look at opportunities. There's a great guy by the name of Mo Adham. He created a company called Twitvid. Have you heard of Twitvid? Twitvid is the largest uploader of videos on Twitter. He is a 23-year-old Jordanian who lives in Silicon Valley. 23 years old. His partner is only 18, 19 years old. They're still in college. He still hasn't graduated. He has 100 million uploads of video every month. I just saw him back in Jordan this summer. You know what he was doing? He was recruiting developers because he was doing his development in some other places in South Asia. And he's coming back and saying, I want to find developers because I want to build my business. Because I heard, you know, he got empowered also by the Maktub story. And then he said, oh, okay, so Maktub had developers in Jordan, so I must be able to find developers in Jordan or Egypt or, so again, stories, good stories or bad stories run like wildfire across the industry, and that's how change happens. That's the good story. And believe me, the education system, governments are starting to address the education system so that people are much more in tune with English language, or multilingual, in tune with technology, in tune what is required so that they meet the demands of the knowledge industries. This is happening fast. Private sector is becoming much more vocal about lobbying government today. While the private sector historically was dependent on government contracts to make money, today, when Maktub does what it does, and you have entrepreneurs that are not dependent on their to create wealth on land or inheritance for the state. So the rentier state is under question, I would say. Is under question. There's a challenge to the system. That's not fair, big time, but power is distributed. Power still resides in the state, but it is slowly eroded by the bloggers, by the social entrepreneurs, by the young entrepreneurs, by the businessmen that are making their wealth somewhere else, not in the region, and coming back to the region and saying, okay, if we want to be competitive, if you want us to be positioned here, then this is what you have to do. So there's no monopoly, even though there's no democracy in the traditional sense, but it doesn't mean that there is no requirement for better governance, more transparency, and better delivery on services. There is huge demand. Any government today, anywhere in the region that is not able to meet the requirements of its population, you will see bloggers popping out all over the place, and you will see them having to respond one way or another. And foreign governments are watching bloggers very carefully nowadays. So I am bridging into the new subject, which is social entrepreneurs and non-state actors who are influencing social change, I think, in the region. These are not big stories. I'm talking about little stories that will accumulate, I think. And we need to watch them very carefully. Will accumulate over the coming few years to become really serious movements for change in the region. Really serious movements for change in the region. These are people like, think of, we were talking about it earlier this morning, think about Hezbollah, think about Hamas, think about the Brotherhood movement, Muslim Brotherhood movement. They're all in their core. Yes, they have huge political influence, but their political influence is a direct result of their social welfare system that they have built across the communities that they live in. That's their strength. They have filled the gap that the government could not fill. Gap of services. This is a story about clinics. This is a story about cleaning garbage. This is a story about bringing food to the people that are unable to eat. This is a story about health services. This is a story about having decent living for the communities. The flip side to the story is, yes, I mean, these are people, we know them because you happen to have to read about them here because of their political story, not because of their social story. But I'm also telling you that there are a lot of young guys that are coming out in similar communities that are taking a responsibility and saying, we can make a difference. We have knowledge, we've graduated, we're educated, we have knowledge, we have capabilities, and we have resources, and we can tap into private sector resources, and there are people slowly from the private sector saying, we can support outside of aid. This is not about USAID. This is about domestic aid, if you want to call it that. This is about development. This is about people saying, we refuse the status quo, and we can make a difference, and we can do something about it. And you have a lot of these young guys. In Egypt, there's a lady that is called Raghda Ibrashi. She runs a fantastic NGO called Alishanik Baladi. And she's a graduate from AUC. She just got her PhD. But from her days at the American University of Cairo, she started Alishanik Baladi. She does microfinance. She does training for people in marginalized communities. And she brings in the private sector to finance and to train these employees for their needs. So she comes to me in Aramex, I'm in the logistics business, and we have a contract with her, by the way, to train drivers for us. And we chose, because that's how we choose to do things as a company, we chose that we want to do all our driver training through her. So she goes and recruits the drivers, and she teaches them English, basic. We give her the requirements that we have, and they're automatically employed. No state money. This is only one individual, and she moves from community to community to do that. And there are so many others. There's another organization called Nahdat al-Mahrusa in Egypt, which incubates social entrepreneurs. Yahoo gave them $500,000 when they acquired Maktoum, the largest Yahoo contribution to an NGO outside of the US, I think, or in the Middle East, has gone to Nahdat al-Mahrusa. What does this say? This also is a story about how the state is eroding its power, because this is non-government money going to non-government institutions, and going to non-traditional NGOs. These are not NGOs. Because the NGOs were, it's either government or NGO historically. So these are actors that are new. These are, yes, not for profits, but they think of their social returns differently and their impact on the ground differently. So, and we have, I'm giving you examples in Egypt. I'll give you an example in Jordan, an organization which I'm involved in called Ruwad. Ruwad meaning, it can mean many things, but for us it means entrepreneurs. Ruwad for development, or Ruwad al-Tanmiya. Ruwad al-Tanmiya is a private sector funded institution, totally private money, doesn't take public money at all, and goes into marginalized communities and replicates what ideological organizations are. So, building clinics, giving scholarships. In return for scholarships, the kids have to give 4 hours of volunteer work every week. So you're not only on the recipient side, you're actually giving back. And you volunteer in your community, and you choose your own project in your community to volunteer in, so that you can actually improve the living conditions in that community. Building a post office, even bringing a police station, lobbying government to address the issues of the community, rebuilding schools. This is completely outside of the domain of the traditional domain of development. When we first started this thing 6 years ago, where I was asked, but this is the job of government. Why are you doing that? So if the government is unable to fix a school, and I'm able to fix it, do I fix it or do I not fix it? There's that way. Is this the job of private sector, or the private sector in the business of only creating shareholder value? Is investing in the community and its affluence, does it give social returns, and then does social returns bring in financial returns and bring in stability and affluence in the community that you live in? Or do you leave it and say, I am in the business of maximizing my value as a shareholder, and ignore the hell that is going on around me, and say it's not my job, the business of business is only business, and it's about shareholder value, not about stakeholder value. You are seeing slowly. This is not. It's not a flood, but it's like a dam, and you're slowly seeing people hitting at it. It will open up. There will be great change in the region, because, basically, in my view, because of the internet, because of the availability of information, because of the lowering of the cost of doing things, because of the ability to benchmark globally so easily. Not the government historically used to control the newspaper industry, and it does today. But who reads newspapers? Today I get my news from bloggers. I don't even read online. Bloggers will tell you. Twitter tells me much more and much quicker than what's happening in my neighborhood than anything else. Uncontrollable. And if they try to control it, what would happen? All hell is going to break loose. So it's a vicious cycle, and they have to live with it. They have to live with it, and they have to accommodate it, and they have to, in fact, harness it and make it happen so that they can look good. And look like they are part of the process rather than stopping it. When Maktoub happened in Jordan, along with it, and now partly the state, partly entrepreneurs, partly leads have launched something called Oasis 500, which is 500 companies and startups, and they've created an incubator where they train entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship at the end of the day, as you know, is a skill that is learned. You don't get born, even though the Lebanese think everybody's born as an entrepreneur. And I'm Lebanese originally, but you don't get born as an entrepreneur. No. And if you're Lebanese, you're not automatically an entrepreneur. You have to learn. I know, I can talk about, my people like that. They will tolerate me, but no. Neither can a Jordanian be born as an entrepreneur. You have to go to school to learn skills, because you might only want to find a job, but if you want to venture into risk and building and step into building something, then if you don't have the skills, you're gonna be in trouble. You're not gonna be able to do it actually, and you shouldn't do it. So governments are starting to realize that through the incubators, through changing the education system. Slowly, the private sector is starting to lobby government and telling them, change the education system because we are a much more competitive country, much more competitive industries if we have an educated workforce that is ready to become productive from the day it graduates, not after years of retraining. Please teach them the basics so that we can teach them the skills that are needed in our industry. Give them the English, give them the computer literacy. Jordan today, by the way, I was telling this morning, you cannot graduate from university unless you have 2 courses of computer literacy. English is taught from year 1. It used to be taught from year 5. Look how many years you lose. By the time you're 10, 12 years old, this is the first time you start learning English versus when you're 6 years old, you start learning English. How big a difference is that going to make in your life when you face the reality of the job market? That is everything that I have to say. There is much more, obviously, but I'm not going to bore you with it. But I want to engage you. I want you to question. I want you to ask me questions. But the story here is the change is happening. Entrepreneurship is, and the ecosystem of entrepreneurship is moving into the region very quickly. Citizen activism, individuals that think that they can make difference on the ground today are stepping up. A blogger during the Gaza war in Jordan just came out with a statement saying, we want to assemble in this place and we want everybody to come in and bring in whatever they want to contribute to this and come to the Aramex warehouse because we want to get contributions to that. Hundreds of people showed up. Hundreds. This is, same thing happened in Dubai. The amount of people that came to the Aramex warehouse just to contribute. So these guys have impact. These guys responded in many cases before the Red Crescent. It created an issue for us as a company. Because Red Crescent in one of the countries said, this is our domain. It is not your domain. But you did not respond. People were itching to do something for the people of Gaza. And we only sent a message saying, if you want to give food, clothes, something for Gaza, come here. So why they say it's ours? Because they feel that the power is gone now. And it's not going to come back. It's gone. The minute it's gone, it's gone. The minute somebody feels he's empowered and can make a difference, he feels that he's empowered and can make a difference forever. So every time you cross the red line, you think you can cross the second red line. Every step you take, you feel you can take the next step. So that's a positive story about the Middle East, right? We didn't speak about Osama bin Laden, we didn't speak about people killing each other. We talked about building businesses, there's a bit of hope. I am extremely optimistic about this side of the story, and why not? Why only harp on the challenges and obstacles rather than saying, okay, obstacles but solutions. So an entrepreneur thinks automatically. You can't type in Arabic properly. You can type your Arabic in English, so I can create a website that does that for you. Right? So it can be. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I just feel the energy in the room. I think you've encouraged a few more entrepreneurs if there weren't already a few. And now I know who created Yahoo, so thank you for that. We have. I didn't know that. So.
Do you use Yahoo?
Yes, I
Good.
do. Fantastic. So I want to encourage you to ask questions.
Yes.
Yes, here in the history of new enterprises here in America, the failure rate for new startups is very high compared to the failure rate for new franchisees. That makes
So new franchisees meaning
yeah,
from
there's
taking a franchise from an established business. So
right.
a McDonald's.
Yeah, that's the most famous example. But do you think what's called micro-franchising could work in the Middle East? So if you have a small success in one region, you could replicate and tailor it specifically to another one?
That's exactly what's happening in the Middle East.
Okay.
So, and Habib will correct me because he knows the industry much better than I do. A lot of the industries that are popping up in the knowledge space, in the .com space, are basically, and correct me if I am reading you well, these are businesses that are copying what's already happening here. So these are already successful models that are here, and they're building them but localized to the local scene over there. Is that what you're saying? Or you're saying taking already established businesses and establishing micro replicas in different regions? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I meant within the Middle East, if there's a success, say in Jordan or Pakistan, can you replicate that to the specific region in Syria or somewhere else?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's exactly what's happening.
All right.
So I took Silicon Valley as an example, but yes. So it is many of the businesses, some of them won't succeed, by the way. So, but many of the businesses, because some of these markets are small, one market, Jordan, is not enough for a business. You can build your base out of Jordan, but you always have to go regional out of Jordan because the market is by nature, by virtue of its size, it's small. So you will find that most of the Jordanian companies that have made it outside of the local industries have actually started and went regional or global. Aramex, which is my business in the logistics business, we started in Jordan, but from day one we went regional and established a regional presence. But yes, the original model, the startup started in Jordan, but we moved across the region.
Thanks.
So I have a question on sustainability, and I'd like to hear how you did that in Aramex. I think it's one thing to launch the business, it's another to have the people who can run it and sustain it and not bring in expats.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of expats by definition, because if you're operating in the Gulf, you're going to have expats. So a Jordanian in the Gulf is an expatriate, by the way, even though he is a regional expatriate, or an Indian, or a Pakistani, or a Sri Lankan, or
But back to the
multinational. We have 43 nationalities working for us across the region. But the issue of sustainability for us is sustainability in terms of how we conduct ourselves, not only as a business, but how we conduct ourselves in the community. So in terms of environmental impact, in terms of corporate social responsibility, in terms of how we treat our employees, in terms of training our people inside, in terms of empowering women inside the organization. That's what we meant by us producing the first sustainability report. So that's the element. So there's the financial report that we have to do, and we do a societal impact report about our existence in that society, and we merge them together. So when we issue our story to the public, we don't only reveal our numbers, but we reveal our impact from a social level. And that's the sustainability side. But sustainability from a business perspective, look, the region is an expatriate. In the Levant, you employ Levantines. In Egypt, you employ Egyptians. In the Gulf, you employ multinationals. You have to. That's how it is. Structurally, that's how the economies are built. You have a lot of Arab expatriates, and you have a lot of South Asian expatriates living in the Gulf. In Dubai, 80% of the expatriates are Indians. That's a great question, and that's what I was trying to answer here. Because
I'm sorry, what didn't get.
he said, what about the 100 million jobs that are required by the year 20, I don't know, in 10 years? Because these reports come out from the World Bank, and at one time they tell us it's 50 million jobs, another time they say 70 million jobs. So we'll take the 100 million jobs to make it a bit difficult for everyone. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. If you read the newspapers of the Gulf, you will find that an education story is close to a front page story every single day. What are we doing about education? But it's a big job, because if you have gotten your people used to basically educate themselves to get employed by government, basically expect to be educated to be employed by government. The government needs to say, I am not employing anymore, go find a job, or go become an entrepreneur, go create jobs. You're finding some change, but part of my story is, that I was trying to say today is, non-governments are coming out and saying, okay, we can make a difference. You will see a lot of this, by the way, in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia has the heaviest population base in the Gulf and has the biggest challenge of employment in the Gulf. Biggest challenge. UAE has zero unemployment practically. Kuwait has zero unemployment, even though most of the population is employed by government or they create their own businesses, but they have zero unemployment. Bahrain has an employment challenge and that's why you see some social upheaval in Bahrain. And my Bahraini friends are sensitive about this, but yes, because it has a huge domestic population base that wants to work, and the government is not able to employ them because they don't have the resources and the oil that the rest of the region has. You will see some social upheaval from Bahrain. And Saudi Arabia is the biggest country in the region, in the Gulf. And that's where a huge amount, I think they have 3 or 4 million expatriates, and they still have about 15 to 17% unemployment. But that's a story strictly, and I know because we employ a lot of people in Saudi Arabia, strictly about skills. Language skills, computer skills. These kids cannot get jobs actually. And then, because they don't have those skills, and number 2, the work ethic is learnable, by the way. I mean, it's not in our DNA that we don't like to work. If we are taught that we need to work, when we graduate, we will say we need to work. So we need to be taught in the region that work is an honorable thing. In fact, not an honorable thing, that's how we need to exercise our existence, by working and becoming productive. That's a big issue for us. So yes, the skill, but if I'm not gonna be, if I don't feel that I need to work because somebody is providing for me, I'm going to sit at home and play video games. Yes, sir.
Right, so you've told us a lot of success stories of ventures in the Middle East.
Right.
But it seems that these success stories were able to be successful because they were able to circumvent the
Right.
need of government.
Right.
By the nature of being technology companies, which are more.
Right. By nature, yes.
But I mean, are there any
I'm listening. I'm just going to get some more.
Are there any stories of ventures which have to rely on government as such? I don't know if I want to have a manufacturing company or a
Yes,
hotel.
licensing. Oh yeah.
I mean, I need land. I need.
Oh yeah. Yes. And to be fair, in many countries in the region, specifically in the Levant and Egypt and the heavy populated areas of the Arab world, you are finding a lot of reforms happening because people realize ease of establishing a business, is streamlining the bureaucratic process of issuing licenses. It's happening. It's not as quickly as I would like it to happen, but I also need to be fair that the state is actually doing that, partly historically from foreign pressure, from foreign, specifically the US, especially the countries that were recipients of US aid. They were told they have conditional aid, meaning you change this law, you will get money. You change this, you will do that. Jordan, for instance, has 100% free foreign ownership law. You can own any business that you want in Jordan without any restriction as a foreign. You can list your company and own 100% of a publicly traded company, maybe a couple of industries that they won't allow. So, but Egypt is changing a lot. There's a lot of free zones popping up in the region. So when the bureaucracy is slow, leadership is bypassing the bureaucracy by building free economic free zones, which are bridges between having the reforms happen and creating those safe environments. It's getting there. My point was, business is moving so fast that government is having to follow suit, because the biggest challenge to government, by the way, is having 100 million people out of a job. Look how much instability that can create. So it's for me and you, obviously, as citizens of those countries, but it's also for the state. It's costly. It's not only destabilizing, it is very costly. Because if you're going to have to spend money on security, that's fair that I think they'd rather have people working and happy and putting food on the table rather than have people on the streets waiting to erupt.
Fadi, thanks for speaking to us. I think you spent quite a bit of time talking about dot-com businesses and business in the tech industry, whereby upfront capital isn't that much. What advice do you have for young entrepreneurs trying to enter the Middle East, seeking brick and mortar businesses, whereby upfront capital is a lot, debt financing is hard to come by and it's expensive, and equity financing is that much more expensive?
Yeah, and I will tell you, it's a bit more challenging, but there are venture funds that are coming out and are actually looking at investing in bricks and mortar businesses.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you're an investor, you want to start out with, keeping as much equity as you can and trying to go through the debt path.
But that's not there anymore. As you know, with the crisis, we're all having to dish out more equity than debt because debt is hard to come by nowadays. So the private equity model has flipped from 30%, 70% debt to equity to the other way around. And that's created the challenge, yes. But I can tell you there are funds out there that are investing in non-IT companies. The Maktub, the Abraj fund is not about technology.
Right.
It is mostly investing in bricks and mortar businesses. Mostly. So pharmaceutical companies, these are small, and there's plenty of them across the region. Yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say the barrage of the world are not looking to invest in startups, in small.
They will in this fund.
What was that?
They will in this fund.
They will.
I know because I put the structure together. They will. Absolutely, they will. There is. They will allocate. They have created 4 or 5 funds with government, with what's called patriotic capital. So in Jordan, there's a $50 million fund that is going to be managed by Abraj, with the European Industrial Bank contributing part of the capital, and the government of Jordan, and Abraj matching and raising new capital. Palestinian Investment Fund, PIF, which is a sovereign wealth fund of Palestine, has also established a joint venture with Abraj for another $50 million in Palestine. Egypt is going to do the same, Bahrain is going to do the same. These are $50 to $100 million country funds, and then Abraj will have about $300 million mother fund to invest across the region. Most of the pipeline that I am looking at, the pipeline, are, non-dot-com businesses. These are established, not startups to be fair, not startups, but small businesses that are maybe 5, 6 years old, need $2, $3 million growth capital.
I want to ask what gap should we be looking at to fill in the meaning of if I want to start my own venture, and in which country? What's the easiest way?
Where are you from?
I'm Palestinian.
So you should go to Palestine. Where are you from in Palestine?
I'm actually
You're here.
no.
Am I asking too many questions?
I'm Palestinian Israeli citizen.
Okay. Well,
It's good.
that's another story altogether.
Yeah.
But you can go to Palestine. You're welcome. There is plenty of opportunities happening. Well, in Israel, I mean, that's, they call it startup nation, but maybe not for you
I
guys.
mean, in Israel, they say that for Palestinians, which I attended a conference, and they say that the best way is to do to have a venture that will export to other countries. It's better than to concentrate on on the population. In
Well,
Israel.
all small countries are going to create export-led industries because that's where the growth is.
No, but I mean, what's the easiest way, for me, as just think about which country is the best way?
In
to start
Israel?
business? It's easy to
Which country? In the
No,
region?
no,
Look, the whole region. Look, the region is small in general. Egypt has 80 million people, but if you look at Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, I don't know, maybe a little bit bigger, has about 18 million people maybe. Iraq is a massive country that has a massive amount of potential, but the security situation is preventing investment to come into it properly. The Gulf has huge opportunities in it. So anybody that wants to establish a business out in some of those small countries has to establish it looking at the region, not looking at that country as a domestic market. Otherwise, you can still create a business and be small. I mean, not all businesses have to be big. I mean, not all businesses can want to start small and go big. Some people, It depends on you, on your character, and what you want to do in your life. If you want to become a manager and run hundreds of people, then you want to grow your business, or you can create a business that is sustainable around Beirut, for instance, and you can be happy creating a restaurant and live happily and not want to do more. It depends on what you want to do and what your ambitions are. But if you want to grow and if you want to create a growth business, then you always have to look regional, because the domestic markets are never big enough. Never big enough. I talk out of experience. Aramex is a regional company. We could not have survived if we thought Jordan was enough or Lebanon was enough. We had to establish presence in every single Arab country, and that's how we were able to go global. Yes, sir.
One of the main drivers of success in startups here is tolerance of failure.
Yes.
So in the past 2 years,
That's the ultimate question.
yeah. But one thing this is the most frustrating thing in the region is that before there was an absolute non-tolerance of failure. Now maybe there is a slight change in mindset, but how substantial is this change? Be it in the private or the public sector, not necessarily just the public sector.
Good question. I have a joke for this. So I have a joke, and I'll give you the answer. So I was tweeting about this just a month ago. I got a massive amount of response. I was talking about, I posted a question on Twitter saying, so what is it, maybe Habib knows, so what is it about, they say the Arab world does not tolerate failure. Do you agree or disagree? So I got a massive amount of response. One of the most interesting responses was, sure we tolerate failure. Look at us accepting our governments around us. Who says we don't tolerate failure? We live with it every day. So, part of the story of the advent of entrepreneurship properly in the Arab world is it will bring with it the trial and error and failure and retrial and by necessity. So I am not a believer that this is cultural. I'm a believer because it did not exist. It's part of the education. Because when your family thinks that you can be an entrepreneur, will encourage you because they think that's a future that you will, they will learn that part of the entrepreneurial story is that you can fail. But because we have not historically had it, we say that we do not tolerate failure, but that's because it hasn't been tried. That's because it hasn't been tried. Once there is enough, in my view, enough of an ecosystem, enough of startups happening, and you will find that it is tolerated. Why not? I mean, I don't see that the Arabs or the Muslims have aversion to the concept of failure, meaning ultimate failure. If you change the story of failure from failure to trying, and maybe not making it the first time, but trying it the second time, or thinking of it as if you're in a lab and continuously trying different chemicals together until you eventually find the one. Yeah, it's learnable. I am a total believer that everything can be learned. There is nothing that comes with birth, except defects, birth defects. But everything else is learnable. I mean, because that gives hope to people. I hate the fact that they say, you know, but we're not entrepreneurs here. Yes, we are. I mean, if we learn how to be entrepreneurs, you will be entrepreneurs. I mean, it's just stupid. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Fadi.
I'm curious to what extent you think the lack of exit opportunities in the region is an inhibitor of growth.
Egypt just announced a small and medium-sized stock exchange. Did you know that? Yes, just a month ago. So they realize it. Bahrain and Dubai are competing now to create stock exchanges for startups. So it's changing. Look, you know who is bringing this out? The people with the money, because they want to exit. I want to invest in you, and this is a more patient capital than private equity, obviously. So private equity flipped very quickly. This is going to be a 7-year round, probably, rather than the 3 to 5 years. It'll probably be 5 to 7 years. But they are basically going to governments and telling them, we're going to have a stream of tens and hundreds of companies that we're investing in. We want you to find exits for them. So it will come. And the laws will change to allow for startups, because a big part of the problems in our stock exchanges is that they don't like startups. You have to have a long history of being a business or establish, or in Dubai, in the Dubai case where you establish a really totally greenfield without any business. So it becomes a bit like a monopoly play. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that entrepreneurship can be learned and should be learned. And my question...
You're here at Harvard, next to MIT, where it's always there.
Right, so let's say you just graduated from college and you have passion for entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, but maybe you have an idea for a business, but you don't know, you've never managed people, you've never started a company. What's a wise first step? Is it to
wise
take
first
some
step?
classes in
I
entrepreneurship?
studied political science and started the business. I mean, how far is that from starting a business? I learned along the way. Yeah, I made my mistakes.
You don't need to take courses in entrepreneurship
You
as
can.
the first step?
I eventually ended up going to various executive education programs to validate what I already know by trial and error.
That's what most people advise me, is to start by trial and error.
I went to Wharton and spent 6 weeks and said, shit, I know all this stuff. I spent money on it, but just because I was an insecure entrepreneur.
Well, that's
I needed somebody to tell me you're doing it right.
So if you have an idea, you should just go and try to start that company and
Yes.
learn from that.
And make mistakes.
Go learn
There's
academy.
nothing better than making mistakes. Everything that I learned is by mistake. Everything. So it's like the small kid that keeps touching the stove, burning his fingers, and eventually he learns after he's burned them all.
Okay, what if you have the passion but you don't have an idea yet? What, is there a
I
way?
hope I can if you have the passion, I'll give you the idea.
That's
I'll make a deal with you.
how can people? That's what
You need passion. You obviously look. You're going the wrong way around. So a lot of people have the ideas but don't have the passion. When you have the passion, the idea will come to you. But you want it. You have to live in the environment that you are going to create your business in, because a business idea doesn't just fall on your brain while you're sleeping. Parts of it might when you're meditating, but you need to know the environment that you're in, because you're effectively an entrepreneur addresses something that needs a solution, or something that's already out there that can be improved on. Somebody that says, I don't like how this is done, I want to do it differently, I want to do it better, I want to do it cheaper, I want to do it faster, I want to do it bigger. And then if you have the passion for it, you're not going to think about it. When you have passion, you just jump. But you need the skill. Jumping without a skill is you're committing suicide. Yes, sir.
You spoke about education and the quality of education as an important challenge for the region, basically.
Right.
Looking at the region, we don't have actually in the region a decent business school, for example. What the private sector is doing about that?
Exactly, and we have been struggling in getting licenses from government to allow us to establish a business school. But I can tell you, the American University of Cairo has a very good business school now. The American University of Beirut recently have been accredited. In Saudi Arabia, there's KAUST. So it's coming. It's coming. The biggest. I was telling at lunchtime, talking to my friends here, and I was telling them that at the American University, the biggest generator of revenue for the university comes from the business school. The business school is their money earner. So, and that's why they had to improve. I happen to be on the board of that school, and I know what's happening there. So, attracting talented, good professors is a challenge to bring back to them because of the political situation. But over and above, they're still able to do that. So there is, but don't underestimate the power of the Arabs that are coming and studying in the West. Huge amount of people, and don't underestimate the amount of people that want to come back, that are already here, that before this period, they're already here, want to come back post 9/11. That's another story altogether. But I feel the amount of people that have come back, and the region fared well in the financial crisis. And that it's still attracting people to come back, specifically to Dubai and to the Gulf. the financial industry, Lebanese, Palestinians, and Jordanians are all over the place. You asked the question.
Yeah. So how did you decide to found RMX? What was your state of mind at that point?
I was straight out of college, just like this gentleman here. I had a lot of passion, but I had no ideas. Partly, I basically was talking to a friend of mine who was a bit older than I am and had already a small courier company here in the East Coast of the United States. And we were discussing back in 1981, long time ago. And he said, you know, this courier industry, express industry, Federal Express, DHL, these were only starting then. You know, Federal Express was started in 1973, 74. It became a serious company and went public 3 years later. So close to where I was starting college and graduating. So we knew that the post office was a disaster. So we said, okay, it's something to look at. Let's test it. Let's try it. I came and spent some time with Federal Express. Come on, I couldn't figure out what the heck they were doing because the scale was massive. Went back home and established RMX with a small office in New York, small office in Amman, and the rest is history.
If I may, were you afraid of failure?
I was never afraid of failure because I was a bit stupid. So, meaning. So, I didn't know what I was going in. You are so lucky now that these issues are addressed all the time. Back then, it was very difficult to access capital. Banks wouldn't talk to you. There was, I didn't know what the word entrepreneurship meant until now. I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. I thought I was establishing a business. I thought I was a businessman. God forbid, you know. So, it was a difficult time. It was a different time. There were many obstacles. For instance, it took us years. It took me 14 years to establish, to get a license in Saudi Arabia to operate a business. 14 years. But that's passion and perseverance. I mean, if you want to do business and you're serious about it, you better have patience. Well, before. Now it's still patience, but a little bit less than what we faced in the early days.
How well protected is intellectual property in the Middle East?
Not well.
Yes.
Not well. That's a challenge. That's a challenge, and I can tell you governments are aware of that. That's a challenge. Some governments are enforcing it, not all. That's a big challenge.
What's changing in the region?
It's changing because they want businesses to be established. They want to encourage entrepreneurship, and they realize it. And again, foreign governments are harping and improve, and because foreign companies, specifically the film industry and the entertainment industry, are trying to, because specifically in the CD industry, you know, you come to Amman, you can buy anything you want for $1. Anything you want for $1. Any series you can imagine is for $1 and with good quality. And Amman was supposed to be a place where they really enforce IP issues. And Microsoft came and was very aggressive for a certain period. So on the software side, by the way, they were able. Microsoft has pushed police to raid certain companies and actually impose. And there is a law against it. It's just about the implementation. Yes.
I wanted to hear about your experience as an entrepreneur. We live in a world with growing inequities. There are 4 billion people who live on $2 or less. 1.5 billion people don't have access to clean water. Another billion don't have access to sanitation. So it makes you wonder, with all the developments, technological innovations, these rifts continue to be there. And my sense is that it really requires a fundamental change in the way we engage in business. And something that you touched upon when you spoke about of being more holistic and the ecosystem and giving back to the community. So I'd like you to elaborate on it and share with us what role do you see business playing with the base of the pyramid, these 4 billion people.
So you must have read C.K. Prahalad and you know his story, so God bless his soul. I don't have an answer to the 4 billion that are living on $2, but there is my posture vis-a-vis how business conducts itself, if you want, in society. Post-crisis. So I believe this in this personally before crisis, but I think the crisis just reconfirmed that the Milton Friedman concept that business is about maximizing profit only, and the rest is left to the state, does not apply. It's a defunct theory. It's a big failure because we know that a bank in the US, when it fails, it has ripple effects across the world. So is that a social impact or not? Does that have financial implications or not? Are we talking about instant gratification, quarter to quarter, profitability maximization, and forgetting that maybe 3 years down the road you're not going to exist as a business? So are we in it for a sustainable long term, or are we in it for an immediate profit return for our shareholders, who are minute compared to the impact that we have on our own community, our own employees? So is the shareholder more important than an employee? It's a big question. Is it? I don't know. An employee works his life off to deliver results in the company. I'm not a socialist, by the way, so that you understand that. But I'm also saying that there needs to be a more holistic, as I mentioned, and a more stakeholder view of things, because the well-being of the ecosystem means the longevity of the business and means fantastic financial returns for the people that are investing. So it is about, you want your profits now, or do you want them continuous? You want the maximum profits now, or do you want reasonable profits continuously? I run a public company, and I tell my shareholders, if they ask me, that's how I'm going to run my business. It's not only about you. I cannot encourage my employees. Imagine if I only tell my employees, or you are all going to study and graduate, would you go to a company that says, you are going to be employed because you're in the business to maximize profits for your shareholders? How boring is that? You're not going to go work there. So, no. Yes, profitable returns, but we need to think of the social impact. We can't exist in today's world where you have 4 billion people living on $2 a day and think that that has no impact on business. Affluence have an impact on business, big time. And then, you know, the CK Prahalad fortune at the bottom of the pyramid is another solution altogether. Is by saying these people can be productive, can be you know, micro consumers, and can be micro producers at the same time. That's another solution altogether. Yes, sir.
Sir, as an aspiring bunker bee, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on business opportunities in North Africa.
North Africa.
And
Changing fast. Changing fast. Libya is changing fast. I've been doing business in Libya for quite some time now, and we already feel feel those changing, is opening up. That's happening very quickly. Morocco is changing very quickly. It's a huge market. Algeria is slower, but again has a huge potential. The Europeans are very keen on renewable energy in North Africa. Very keen, because you know of the Sun Belt that runs from North Africa all the way up to the Red Sea, where you have the purest sun continuously shining at the longest period in 365 days. So building the renewable energy out of to provide power for Europe is being looked at in North Africa. So there are opportunities.
And what about entrepreneurship in healthcare?
I'm not an expert on I can you know, healthcare. Morocco is. You're from Morocco? Where are you from?
I'm from America, but Switzerland.
Okay. So but you said you have family there, or?
I just lived there for a while.
You lived there for a while. So educate. Look, these are big countries. So education, healthcare, consumer, food, FMCG businesses are just flocking into these countries. I can tell you, because they need to provide education. You know, the privatization. I can give you Syria as an example. When Syria allowed for private sector to establish business, universities, it's plenty are popping up, because the state cannot absorb all these students that are coming into university. That will have an impact. So that is a business, and it will have an impact on the education. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to go back to the question of sustainability and CSR. Can you talk a bit about what you perceive as the mindset of businesses in the Middle East on that question? And is IRMX alone, or or a leader on this front, or are there other businesses?
We'd like to think that we're a leader, but we're not alone. So we're early adopters, we were early believers, very early. So IMX has been doing this for more than 20 years. Now we're hurt because we're a bigger company. Now we know that we have to publish what we say and be accountable along the way, so that it's not only a PR job. A lot of it is PR, but there are many serious companies that are popping up and saying we are going to publish our sustainability reports, we are going to publish community reports. Abraj Capital publishes a community impact report now. Doesn't publish a sustainability report, but it says what it does. A lot of banks are thinking that they need to get engaged much more in the community. There are initiatives that are coming out that are engaging the private sector much more. So it's not only about their money, it's about engaging them in in-kind stuff. So give us internships, provide training, bring your employees to volunteer in these communities. So you are seeing a lot, and you're seeing companies that are as active as IMX. So they're going and doing community empowerment projects across. Pharmaceutical companies are also very active in their own domain in healthcare community services. So there is, it's, again, everything that I've said today, it's only, that you're just seeing some green shoots popping up here and there. There's no mass movement towards it, but there are examples, there are leaders, there are people that are coming out that it's saying it can be done. And nothing better than a success story for people to emulate. Role models are extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. I said this story last year, but I'm going to repeat it now when I came to the Arab student,
Arab Weekend.
What's it called?
Harvard Arab Weekend.
Harvard Arab Weekend. So I told the story of the 4-minute mile. You've heard the story?
Some of us, not everyone.
Yeah, but it's a good story, so I'm going to repeat it. So the 4-minute mile is about a gentleman who broke the 4-minute mile. His name was Roger Bannister. So Roger Bannister kept trying and trying and trying, and at that time, I think it was in 1956, 57, it was an impossibility. People thought that it was not human to break the mile run with 4 minutes. Until this guy came, who was a medical student out of Oxford, very skinny, kept trying and trying, and then broke the 4-minute mile. That's not the story. The story is 17 people within the year broke the 4-minute mile right out. The minute he did it, he became a role model. And people thought it can be done, and then the 4-minute mile is history. Everybody runs a 4-minute mile. We can. So and that's the impact of role models. You need to see one story, 2 stories, 3 stories, and then a flood. And that's what. Yes, Habib.
First, thank you for making me famous today.
You are famous already.
So actually, on the role models, there's one thing that I see in the Arab world happening and that worries me a bit, and it's about encouraging a lot of people to be entrepreneurs at the same time, but not really giving them the right tools to really become entrepreneurs. So about Yoga Startup, which I started to actually help entrepreneurs know and be a little bit more educated. And a week ago, there was an interesting story of an entrepreneur who came to me. I won't mention his name, but he said we mentor a few entrepreneurs, and this particular entrepreneur has a company with 3 people, and they did a very interesting website. And they got an offer from NBC Group to invest in them for $700,000. Wow. And one of them decided the deal is not good for me, I want more money and more equity, and he stopped the site. The site went down. And then we spent like an hour trying to figure out how we're gonna get them all together, and unfortunately just yesterday, it seems like everyone backed up. If you go to the site, it directs to YouTube now. Yeah, it's dead. So this is one example. Another example is another startup, another entrepreneur we used to mentor who built a really big brand name in the online cartoons in Jordan, and realized that he wasn't able to make enough money on advertising, something that very few in the Arab world actually go and say publicly, that the advertising space is very low, and entrepreneurs don't rely on that. Find another revenue model.
Right.
It backfired. He went now to look for a job, and he's probably going to stay for a few more years before he actually goes back and starts another company. So those are two very successful, passionate entrepreneurs who failed and are not going to do it again. So my question here is it responsible? Should we encourage more people to take risks, or fewer people to take more risks and nurture those?
No,
Create a few success stories.
Habib, these are good stories, but that happens everywhere. I mean, it's not about the region alone. But that's part of why what you're doing in Yalla Startup to support entrepreneurs and to mentor them is important. What Maidan is doing, what Endeavor is doing in the region. These are people that are holding hands with the entrepreneurs, helping them, guiding them. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the questions that come from entrepreneurs, I get inundated with questions from these entrepreneurs about these issues. We need to create that ecosystem, and that's part of what Abraj is going to be launching is an angel investor network that because angel investors will have to commit to be mentors. So you're not only going to give me money, because I don't want your money, I want you to give your time and your energy. So yes, I mean, these guys will make their mistakes, but they also need to have people like you and I and whoever that has a bit of wisdom to guide them, so that they don't get too greedy or get too slow or too fast or too big. All the issues that we've all faced at a certain time in our careers. Yeah, I mean, again, as you know, you started Yalla Startup only a year ago, and how much? Tell them you have your week coming up when?
November, mid-November.
So your website went down actually when you announced.
Yeah.
So how many people registered?
We have now a lot of people paying cash because they don't have credit cards. So
Yeah. And when the Arab Web conference happened, what's it called? ArabNet. The amount of people that came to the conference was amazing. So it's there. Again, not everyone is going to make it, but you need the volume. You need the people. Why not? Look, he made his mistake. It's his problem. You don't need to worry about everybody.
No,
that's
right.
I mean, it's like, it happens with me and my two sons. They both graduated from college, and I encourage everybody to go in and try and fail, except for my sons. I said, don't do it. But that's the nature of our instinctive thing. But you need to leave them that, because that's the only way they're going to learn. So we don't want to be too careful.
I mean, example, you talked about Mo Adham, founder of Twitter. He's an amazing guy, and I talked to him. He's very
He was
mature.
mentored, by the way, by a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
Rani Rad.
Right,
Rani Rad mentored him.
Right, and
Because he was a baby.
Right, and he was very
I mean,
mature.
he probably
was
see me, but he was a baby.
Yeah.
At 20 years old, you're a baby. Yeah, close.
I'm going to take the opportunity